Good morning, this is Robin Bieber on ChartTalk on the 29th of May at 6:45 in the morning, London time. And the chart in front of us is July RBOB, and it pretty much encapsulates the technical picture for the market. Here we see the recovery from the lows all the way up to the 109.16 area where it tested it twice and failed. This completed a massive price cycle from lows to the first CP. It then slid and over the last 2 to 3 days has tested the 13-day moving average. Now what happened yesterday morning was that every single contract slipped below their 5 and 8, which RBOB had done a day earlier, giving very good early warning signals, and headed for their 13-day moving averages, which they either held virtually to the cent, like August Brent, or they breached it a bit and then recovered, like heat. But heat and gas oil both failed at the 13-day moving average. So that's a bearish box that needs to be ticked. RBOB, however, is holding the critical 13-day moving average today at about 101.03. It's below the 5 and 8 day moving averages, which have proven very, very good resistance for the last 2 days. The crudes, meanwhile, both closed over their 5 and 8 day moving averages, which is supportive, which is constructive. But overnight, they've slid below. So there are plenty of ifs and buts this morning. But the main if and but is if RBOB slides below the 13-day moving average at 101.03, it's going to have a contagious negative effect on the rest, which will take the crudes down to their 13-day moving averages, and the heat, gas oil and RBOB probably heading for their 21-day moving average, which in RBOB's case is at 96.26. For this scenario to develop, we need RBOB below the 13-day at 101.03. Conversely, where the but comes in, is if the crudes rally over their 5 and 8s and any of the others do too, then the immediately slightly negative picture that's developing this morning is negated, and we'll be looking for retests of the recent highs. So there are ifs and buts, and it's a technical tightrope. In RBOB's case, the key is the 13-day moving average at 101.03. Below there, and both it and the rest are in trouble. It's the most important support pivot on the board. Over the 5 and 8s, particularly on the crudes, or the crudes will do it first if they're going to go over the 5 and 8. Over the 5 and 8s on the crudes, and they're holding the market, and it's unlikely that we'll go into dump mode. And if, for example, the products could get over their 5 and 8s, and in RBOB's case, they start at 103.58, the 5-day moving average. If it was to move over there, then that would be positive and negate bearishness. So, as I say, quite a lot to look at this morning. If we look at the crudes first now, WTI, it's just below its 5 and 8s that come in today around 33.33 to 33.50. If it can move and close over there, it is likely to go into a retest of the first CP at 34.72, but with no serious upside unless it closed over 35.18. Staying below the 5 and 8s today still makes the 13-day moving average around 31.37 an attractive target for it, and a likely target. It's still got a negative stochastic. Brent is not that dissimilar. It bounced off its 13-day moving average yesterday, completing the price cycle lower, and rallied to close above the 5 and 8s, but only by 3 cents above the 5, so it's hardly conclusive. This morning it's below them both, and they come in at around 36.05. A move and close over there would probably have Brent retesting 37.24. So on both the crudes, the 5 and 8s are critical initial resistance today. If they move over them during the course of the day, it will probably cause the rest to recover, and the 13-day moving average would be secure on RBOB. So watch the 5 and 8s very carefully. Equally, no serious downside unless it can move and close below the 13-day at 34.81. It has a negative stochastic, which isn't great. Heating oil is in a poor condition. It's below the 5 and 8 and the 13-day. It held the 13-day initially yesterday and then recovered, but it then closed just below, but only by 10 points. So a bit like Brent's close over the 5-day by 3 cents, Heat's closed below the 13-day by 10 points is hardly conclusive. The 13-day comes in today at around 98.16, also with the 13-week moving average comes in. But if it moves and closes above 98.16, it would certainly indicate holding for the moment. Staying below the 13-day would be negative. So the 13-day is a critical pivot this morning, which needs to be watched. And the overnight move below it, continuing last night's small move below it, is hardly conclusive yet. If it's below the 13-day this afternoon, be careful. No significant upside whilst below the 5 and 8s. And gas oil is in the same boat as heat. It's below the 13-day, just coming in today at around 284 and a quarter. Whilst below there, it's in trouble, but I would not rule out it trying to get back above it. And there's no serious upside whilst below the 5 and 8s. Below the 13, and it's likely to head for the 21-day around 271. The picture is clear. The 5 and 8s are initial resistance, particularly on the crudes, but also to a slightly lesser extent on RBOB. July RBOB. If it can move, and if the contracts can move over their 5 and 8s, downside is totally on hold, and indeed we may be looking for a retest of the recent highs. If, however, the 5 and 8s remain as good resistance on the crudes and RBOB doesn't move above them, and RBOB moves below the 13-day moving average around 101.03, then the message is clear. There's more downside pressure. We're going to go and retest the 13s again. And in heat and gas oil's case, it will probably be the 21s, and the market will slide. So watch RBOB at 101.03 and watch the crudes at the 5 and 8s. Those are the two things that hold the clues. Now, if we look at a little bit of structure, Deck Red Deck faltering on WTI whilst below 325. If it stays below 325, the odds are it makes its way to minus 370. And Deck Red Deck on Brent also faltering. It needs to move below minus 432 to have a target to minus 449, but it's struggling below all the short-term moving averages, and it looks like it's going to still shed value. And if you look at the 60-minute chart on Brent, this is August Brent, it looks a little pressured, and I suspect it's going to come under pressure, downside pressure that is, in the first few hours of the morning. It's not overly conclusive. They're not, although they're both negative, these 60-minute stochastics, they're not exactly plunging south. And RBOB's 60-minute chart is beginning to suggest that we're running into some support and we could easily recover. So watch RBOB. It may, not only is it likely, it's very likely to move back above or test its 5 and 8 day moving averages. That's all for today, folks. Good luck, good trading, and bon appetit.